There's something about Sigma men that unsettles people, something that doesn't fit into the usual rhythm of human interaction. They walk into a room and though they may say very little, their presence lingers. Their silence carries weight, their eyes observe more than they reveal, and their detachment feels almost otherworldly. For many, this can feel eerie, but it isn't rooted in darkness, it's rooted in difference. Sigma men challenge the social script that most people are trained to follow from childhood. While society runs on small talk, shared rituals, and predictable social cues, Sigma men often choose to step outside that pattern. This isn't rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's a natural extension of their independence and self-sufficiency. They're less concerned with approval and more focused on living authentically, which in itself can unsettle those who thrive on external validation. Psychologists note that humans are social creatures wired for belonging. When someone doesn't play along with the unwritten rules of interaction, smiling at the expected moments, speaking when silence is awkward, or showing eagerness to fit in, it creates discomfort. This is why Sigma men are often labeled as mysterious or even creepy. But in reality, their behavior reflects traits like introversion, deep observation, and self-reliance. Many Sigma men thrive in solitude, where studies show creativity and problem-solving often flourish. History and literature are full of lone wolves, thinkers, and innovators who mirrored these patterns, from philosophers like Nietzsche to modern entrepreneurs who prefer independence over conformity. So when people whisper about the strange, unsettling presence of a Sigma man, it's not about menace. It's about misunderstanding. What others interpret as coldness is often discipline. What they call aloofness is depth. Sigma men do not perform for the crowd, they remain anchored in who they are. And in a world built on noise, that silence itself becomes powerful. By the end of this journey, you'll see that the so-called creepiness is simply the cost of authenticity in a society that craves sameness. Number 1, the silent stare. There's a unique kind of silence that Sigma men bring into a room, and it is unlike any other. It isn't the silence of shyness, nor the silence born from discomfort. Rather, it feels intentional, deliberate, and almost weighted. People notice it before they even understand it, and that is precisely what makes it so distinct. The Sigma male does not use words as tools for validation or social dominance. He does not feel the need to prove his intelligence through constant chatter, nor does he scramble to fill awkward pauses. Instead, he allows silence to exist, using it as space to observe, reflect, and analyze. This alone sets him apart in a world where noise is often mistaken for confidence. What makes this silence striking is the way it is paired with attention. The Sigma's gaze lingers longer than most people are comfortable with. In psychology, prolonged eye contact can trigger unease because we are conditioned to associate it with dominance, attraction, or confrontation. But with a Sigma male, eye contact means something different. It is a form of study. He is not trying to intimidate or charm. He is gathering information, absorbing details, and reading between the lines in ways most people don't take the time to do. In a culture of fragmented focus where eyes wander to phones and conversations are layered with distraction, the Sigma's undivided presence can feel almost unnatural. And yet this intense focus is not judgmental, it is understanding. It is the kind of attention that sees beyond words into tone, hesitation, and subtle gestures. Research has shown that true active listening, where someone gives their complete attention without interruption, is both rare and deeply impactful. Many who encounter Sigma men mistake this stillness for aloofness or even creepiness, but in truth, it is a quiet form of respect. He is giving what few are willing to give, his complete presence. That very rarity is what unsettles people. They are not used to being seen so fully. Ultimately, the silence of the Sigma man is not a weapon, but a window into a mind that thrives on observation, reflection, and depth. What unnerves others is not the silence itself, but the mystery of what he chooses to withhold. His quiet is not emptiness, it is a signal that there is far more going on beneath the surface than most will ever be invited to see. Number 2, disappearing without warning. One of the behaviors people often find unsettling about Sigma men is their quiet ability to vanish. Not in the physical sense, but socially. They can be fully present in your world, laughing with friends, contributing at work, or engaging in deep conversations, only to disappear the next day without explanation or farewell. This confuses people because it goes against the natural rhythm of social interaction. Most individuals feel bound to continuity. They believe that departures require explanations, apologies, or at the very least, a polite goodbye. But for the Sigma, silence is often the explanation. To a Sigma male, stepping away isn't about avoidance, it's about preservation. They see their energy as something sacred, not to be wasted on spaces, groups, or relationships that no longer serve their growth. Psychologically, this can be linked to what sociologists call a behavior where individuals detach themselves from roles or environments that don't align with their values. Unlike others, Sigmas don't feel the need to soften the discomfort of absence. They trust their instincts and act decisively, even if it feels abrupt to those around them. This sudden absence can leave others unsettled, almost haunted. Humans crave closure. When someone vanishes without explanation, the mind scrambles to fill the silence with assumptions. Perhaps they were offended, maybe they're rejecting us, or worse, they never valued the connection at all. Yet in reality, the Sigma's disappearance has little to do with others and everything to do with alignment. Their detachment is not coldness, but clarity. Why linger in draining situations? Why explain decisions to people who may not understand? What feels ghostly to some is, in truth, discipline. Studies in behavioral psychology show that boundary setting is one of the strongest indicators of emotional intelligence. Sigma men embody this by walking away when necessary, even at the cost of being misunderstood. Their disappearances are resets, moments of reflection and realignment that keep them true to themselves. In the end, the Sigma's silence holds a hidden lesson. Sometimes the purest honesty isn't in explaining your absence, but in honoring it. By vanishing, they remind others of an uncomfortable truth. Not all departures need an announcement, and not all silence is rejection. Sometimes it's self-preservation. Number 3, speaking in minimal words. We live in an age where silence is almost suspicious. From constant notifications to conversations padded with small talk, the modern world thrives on filling every quiet moment with words or sound. Against this backdrop, Sigma men stand out, not because they are louder, but because they are not. Their relationship with language is different. They choose silence where others choose chatter, and in doing so they disturb the rhythm of social expectation. Psychologists have long studied the power of silence in human interaction. Research shows that people often feel uncomfortable in pauses during conversation, rushing to fill gaps even with meaningless words. Sigma men do not share this discomfort. For them, silence is not a void to be avoided, but a tool to be used. It gives space for thought, creates an air of mystery, and whether intentionally or not, shifts the balance of power in a conversation. A man who does not rush to respond appears more in control, and this very restraint can make others anxious. What unsettles people is not just the quiet itself, but the unpredictability it creates. In most conversations, we rely on patterns of speech to anticipate what comes next. When a Sigma man breaks this pattern by withholding words, others are forced to interpret his silence. Some assume he is arrogant, others believe he is hiding something, and still others think he is wise. In truth, he may simply be conserving his energy, speaking only when the moment has real value. This selective communication also explains why when a Sigma finally speaks, people lean in. His words, rare as they are, carry weight. History offers examples of such figures, leaders like Abraham Lincoln, who was famously quiet, but whose carefully chosen words continue to echo through time. In contrast to endless talkers who dilute their meaning with excess, Sigma men know the potency of measured speech. Ironically, what some call creepy is often just the discipline of clarity. By refusing to drown in noise, Sigma men become sharper observers, better listeners, and more decisive thinkers. To stand in their silence is to be reminded that words are not cheap, they are powerful, and when used with intention, they shape perception and command respect. Number 4, unpredictable routines. Human beings are wired for patterns. Psychologists often note that routines provide a sense of safety because they reduce uncertainty and help the brain conserve energy. Think about it. Waking up at the same time, following a familiar route to work, or repeating daily rituals creates a rhythm that feels predictable and stable. This predictability lowers stress as the brain doesn't have to constantly process new information. However, Sigma men often move against this current of predictability, and that's what makes their presence feel so different. Unlike most people who build their identity and security around consistency, Sigma men embrace adaptability. One week they may throw themselves entirely into a project and the next walk away from it without hesitation. To outsiders, this seems puzzling, even unsettling. Humans often measure trust and stability by another person's consistency. So when a Sigma man shifts course suddenly, whether by changing jobs, relocating, or abandoning a routine, people interpret it as mysterious or even suspicious. But in reality, this unpredictability is not random chaos. It's a deliberate response to growth. Research in psychology shows that individuals who adapt easily to change often demonstrate higher levels of resilience. They are not locked into habits simply for comfort. They adjust based on whether those habits still serve a purpose. Sigma men embody this principle. Their lives are shaped more by inner alignment than by external expectations, which is why they move when others would stay stuck. What unnerves people is the silent freedom this represents. Most individuals remain tied to routines, even ones that no longer fulfill them, because the fear of the unknown is stronger than the discomfort of repetition. Sigma men, however, step into the unknown without hesitation. To some, this looks ghostly, like they can vanish from one chapter of life and reappear in another with ease. Yet it is precisely this adaptability that makes them effective, independent, and deeply self-directed. So while unpredictability may look creepy to outsiders, it is actually a quiet form of clarity. Sigma men remind us that freedom is not always found in routines we cling to, but in the courage to change them when they no longer serve our path. Number 5, emotional detachment. In moments of tension, when emotions boil over and people usually expose their raw selves, Sigma men stand apart. Most individuals raise their voices, pace around, or gesture in frustration, but the Sigma's calm composure remains intact even when chaos erupts around them. To the untrained eye, this stillness might appear cold, almost robotic, as if he is detached from reality. Yet the opposite is true. His silence is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of discipline. Psychologists often note that people who can regulate their emotions, especially under stress, exhibit higher emotional intelligence. Sigma men embody this principle. Instead of reacting impulsively, which often clouds judgment and escalates conflict, they process everything inwardly. They feel just as deeply as anyone else, but their responses are filtered through reflection rather than impulse. This makes their reactions measured, precise, and at times eerily unpredictable. What others see as detachment is actually a refined form of self-mastery. Consider history's great Stoics, figures like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled Rome not with loud theatrics but with a quiet strength rooted in reason and philosophy. Sigma men reflect this same energy. Their restraint doesn't mean indifference. It means they refuse to hand over control of their state of mind to external forces. In conflict, this is profoundly unsettling for others. While tempers flare and voices rise, the Sigma remains steady, calculating in silence. His unreadable demeanor leaves people uneasy because unpredictability is often mistaken for danger. To those who equate authenticity with emotional display, the Sigma's calm feels creepy. But in reality, it is a rare strength, the ability to remain unmoved in storms that swallow others whole. It is not that Sigma men lack fire, it's that they've learned to keep the flame under control, using it with intention rather than allowing it to burn recklessly. Their silence is not emptiness, it is power contained. Number 6, intense observation of others. Have you ever spoken to someone who notices things about you that others completely miss? The slight shift of your eyes, the subtle hesitation in your words, the almost invisible change in your tone. Sigma men possess this rare ability, and for many it feels almost unsettling. Unlike people who rush to fill silence with chatter, Sigma men thrive in quiet. That quietness sharpens their perception, giving them the space to observe what most overlook. Psychology tells us that micro-expressions, those tiny, split-second facial movements, reveal hidden emotions. While most people miss them, Sigma men often catch them, reading between the lines of human behavior with an almost eerie accuracy. This talent goes beyond faces. They notice posture, energy, shifts in a room, and even the rhythm of someone's breathing. Where others skim the surface of conversation, Sigma men dive deep into unspoken truths. And this can be disarming. People often sense that the Sigma sees through their masks, that their carefully built defenses are quietly being read like an open book. It creates the feeling of being under a spotlight, even when the Sigma has spoken barely a word. But here's the key: this isn't manipulation. For Sigma men, observation is understanding. They aren't trying to control others, but to learn. In a world where distraction has become the norm, their level of attention feels unusual, even invasive. What some call creepy is really just the power of presence, being deeply aware in a society that rarely slows down long enough to notice. Studies show that people today spend less than 10 seconds truly focusing before their mind wanders. Sigma men, however, flip this script. They linger, they listen, they see. And because most people are unused to that depth of attention, it unsettles them. Yet what feels unnerving to others is simply the Sigma man's gift of awareness. Number 7, comfort in isolation. Perhaps the trait that most unsettles others is the Sigma man's comfort in solitude. While the average person often views being alone as a sign of emptiness, punishment, or social rejection, the Sigma male interprets it in a completely different way. Solitude for him is not a void to be filled, but a sanctuary to be embraced. In psychological studies, solitude has been linked to increased creativity, sharper problem-solving skills, and even improved emotional regulation. Many great thinkers, from Nikola Tesla to Albert Einstein, valued extended periods of being alone not as a weakness, but as a means of accessing deeper levels of thought and insight. The Sigma male carries this same understanding almost instinctively. He thrives in quiet spaces where distractions vanish. Long solitary walks, evenings spent in deep reflection, or nights where only his thoughts keep him company are not burdens for him. They are blessings. Unlike extroverts who recharge through social interaction, or even many introverts who still crave occasional validation, the Sigma male refuels entirely within his own presence. This sets him apart in a society wired for constant connection, where silence often feels uncomfortable. His ability to draw strength from solitude can make him appear mysterious, even unsettling to others who avoid being alone at all costs. To many, his independence mirrors their own dependency. Most people constantly seek reassurance from friends, family, or social networks. They scroll endlessly, engage in small talk, or keep noise around just to avoid confronting their inner world. When they meet someone who willingly confronts himself in silence, it reminds them of what they fear most: being alone with their own thoughts. This is why some label the Sigma creepy. His comfort in spaces of stillness magnifies their discomfort, and his independence feels like a mirror reflecting their reliance on external approval. Yet for the Sigma, solitude is not a rejection of people, it is a renewal of self. He steps away not to escape humanity, but to re-enter it with clarity and focus. This rhythm of withdrawal and return is what allows him to be effective, composed, and often wiser than those who never pause. In a world that equates constant busyness with success, the Sigma male quietly proves that silence is power. His solitude may confuse others, but to him it is the wellspring of strength, creativity, and resilience, a life few understand but many secretly admire. And so we arrive at the end of this quiet reflection. 7 traits, each unsettling in its own way, yet none born from malice or cruelty. Instead, what people often call creepy in Sigma men is simply the reflection of a different rhythm, one that does not bend to the noise of the crowd, the silent stare, the sudden disappearances, the minimal words, the unpredictable routines, the calm in the face of storms, the piercing observation, the comfort in solitude. Taken together, these qualities form a portrait of a man who walks apart, not because he rejects the world, but because he refuses to be lost in it. His ways unsettle because they remind us of truths we often avoid, that silence can speak louder than words, that leaving can sometimes be more honest than staying, and that solitude can hold more power than a crowded room. To call these traits creepy is to admit how unusual true independence has become. Most people live tethered to approval, to routines, to noise, to constant presence. A man who untethers himself from these things appears unfamiliar, even unsettling. But in that unfamiliarity lies strength. If you are a Sigma man listening now, perhaps you recognize these traits within yourself. Perhaps you have noticed the way people react to your silence, or the unease your absence can leave behind. Let it not trouble you. What others fear in you is often the reflection of what they fear in themselves, and if you are not a Sigma but simply curious, let this serve as a reminder. What seems eerie from the outside is often peaceful on the inside. To live differently is not to live wrongly. Sometimes it is to live more honestly. So the next time you encounter someone who unsettles you with their quietness, their distance, or their unpredictability, pause before labeling it as strange. Perhaps what you are sensing is not creepiness at all, but depth. A depth that does not demand your attention, yet silently asks you to reflect on your own life, your own patterns, your own truths. In the end, the Sigma man is not a ghost, nor a mystery to be solved. He is simply a mirror. And in his stillness, he reveals the parts of ourselves we often overlook. Take that with you, reflect on it, and perhaps in your own way you will find comfort in the silence too.